Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new little happy experiment, our movie club. Many people have been clamoring for this moment for a while, and so we figured we'd give it a shot. This is not, let's say, your average movie review or movie breakdown. That's not quite what we're doing here, although some of that will no doubt happen. I have the pleasure of being joined by Gustavs and Christopher, who graciously donated their time to do this fun little exploration with me. And before we start, a few little housekeeping things. First of all, I'm going to take my phone because a lot of people don't seem to know how to do this. And I'm actually going to put it on silent on screen because I never do that. And I decided consciously this morning that I was going to do that. And now it can't talk to me anymore at all. It can't vibrate. It can't do anything. And, this is one of those things people are always saying, like, oh, the social media, the phones, they're attacking my brain. It's like, except social media and phones can be shut off pretty easily, it turns out. So, curate your signal. I also want to caveat this, and one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to this, I was talking about this earlier this morning with Sarah, is this is one of my very favoriteest movies, partly because this is, in my estimation, fully and completely representative of the Boston that I was in when I lived near Boston. So probably a lot of biases on my part about the movie and things I don't see because I know that part of Boston pretty well. I know almost all those shot locations. I could just take you there. So this is a movie near and dear to my heart. So um I want to get that out of the way. I don't want to hide anything from anybody. Like that's like I know people will say things like, Robin Williams didn't do the accent right. They're wrong. Uh, you know, there's subtleties about Southie for sure. And you could say not everybody in Southie, has the exact same Southie accent, but also he did a pretty good job actually. So um it's good to know that Matt Damon, who wrote the movie, and Ben Affleck both lived in around Cambridge and Boston. So that, there's some specialties because of that to the movie that I think help to make it really, really good. So, Gustavs, I know that, people who know the channel know who you are, but why don't you just want to, talk about who you are and why you're here for this particular event?
Hi, yeah, I'm Gustavs. I'm here because I wanna get deeper into learning how to see things in movies and just pieces of art, books and so on, and the way that this movie club has been structured really, I think, helped me with that. It was difficult, but we'll talk more about it, I'm sure. And yeah, the movie, I really, really liked it. I'd seen it before, but saw it with completely new eyes now. And there's a lot in there that I can relate to. I think s- many ways. One of the big ones is just that I haven't been out of the university for that long, just a couple of years, but it was a very strong. It left a strong impression on me, and a lot of this happened sort of around university. So many experiences I can sort of relate to. Yeah.
Excellent. Christopher, also not at all unknown to the channel. Go ahead and tell us who you are and why you're doing this with us today.
Yeah, I am Christopher. I am participating in this just to help practice exploring the patterns in the movies and stuff. So
Great.
that's basically why I'm here, is to do that.
Perfect. Well, yeah, it sounds like my little document was successful. Um, if anybody else, would like to join, these two reached out to me on Discord, obviously, because they're on the Discord server with me. But if anybody else would like to join, let me know, and we will certainly consider it, unless we don't know you and you're scary, whatever. So yeah, and then anybody who wants to follow along, um, there is a document and a document link on the community page, and of course on the Discord server. And that was what we sort of filled out to get people in the frame of looking at and for certain things in order to engage with the process, right? And so when when you're doing something, there's this idea that we have, for example, when we're doing our book clubs, of setting intention. The document was designed to some extent to set your intention and put your attention towards certain aspects of the film. And we've been talking about this, on and off for like a year and a half. Unfortunately, there was just so much going on, and I couldn't figure out how to structure it. And then I had the occasion. We were talking about various different movies, and I did my my Matrix live stream, and we were talking about various different movies. This one never came up. What happened was I watched it and I went, "Oh my goodness, here's a bunch of stuff that I hadn't thought of before in that way." Because it's been a while since I'd watched it, and new tools, right? We have new tools. That's part of the Peterson sphere expansion here, is new tools for looking at the world. We'll say tools of meaning rather than tools of materialism or something, or tools of objectivism, or individual tools. Because I think one of the deep themes in this movie is change through connectedness, if you wanted to make it as silly concise as possible, which apparently I do. And so that is to give you an idea. So the whole document is centered around, identify the following. And so, if you had to pick, who would you identify as the protagonist, Gustavs?
I would probably choose Sean, the therapist, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Christopher, what was your choice?
I thought that I was kind of a toss up between Sean the therapist or Ben Affleck's character as the protagonist.
Excellent. Okay. And yeah, just to caveat this is not about right answers. We're not. I'm not giving a masterclass on how to break down a movie, although I'm doing something I think much more significant. And so, yeah, if you want to look at this from different perspectives in terms of and this is one of those problems. Protagonist and antagonist. I did this very much deliberately, right? So I kind of, I'm kind of playing a trick here. It's easy to say there's no protagonist or antagonist in this movie, and that would still be correct. And the reason why is because it's not a movie that fits in that pattern at all. And there's a bunch of other patterns that fit in. Like, there are zero antagonists in the movie. Like, that just didn't happen, right? Because there's no face off between two characters that is inherently antagonistic, right? There's a face off between the professor and the therapist, right? Because of a split that happened, right? But that's not the same thing, and it's not the driving force. So you could say that the driving force for good of the movie is clearly the therapist, or is clearly the friend, the best friend. Either one would work, right? And that's one way to look at it. You could also make a case for Will being the protagonist in terms of the force for good in the movie. And the reason why is because it's his coming on the scene that causes everything else to happen, right? And so you could look at it that way too. But the correct answer is there really is no protagonist or antagonist in the film. Like, that definitely didn't happen. And so I want to know what you guys thought. We'll just go in the same order, Gustavs and then Christopher. In terms of the theme, right? What ties the beginning of the and the end of the film together, right? The we'll call it the major theme of the movie, and that resolves the tension and probably also sets it up and sets it up from the start. Gustavs, what did you catch on for a theme?
I think it has to do with Will Hunting having integrity between his professed intention and his acted intention in life, or like self-understood intention.
Okay. Well, I think I want to generalize that out slightly, right? And say, okay, so you think the theme of the movie is the difference between your stated intent and your intent and in terms of behaved intent.
or even just having an intent, because I think that's
Hmm.
like coming to understand it, because
Okay.
a big theme, we can elaborate on this, but a big theme is that he doesn't know what to do when he's offered opportunities and options, because he doesn't know what he's doing, so he's kind of stuck,
Yes.
I think.
Yes. Oh, we'll get to stuckness. We'll get there. Christopher, what did you catch for a theme?
I love the theme of the movie. I put down not being trapped, or not by the past.
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. And yeah, that past resolution of the past sort of problems. Yeah. No, that's really good. I like that. Um yeah, okay. And then so I just had, relationships open the world, past, present, and future, right? So that's yeah, that theme of yeah, I mean, it's basically an anti-individualist movie at some deep level, right? You've got three individualists, and they all go through a transformation, right, as the result of being drawn together. Um, and yeah, like I said earlier, you can play with the perspective. You can say like, there's this deep rift between two former college roommate friends, and this one guy comes into their life and changes it both of them, right? You can play that interesting game with perspective, and I think that's probably what makes a really good movie. Partly is it doesn't follow the strict movie formula. You're going to notice that about all the best movies, by the way. Um, and I think people get confused because you can put any movie into a protagonist, antagonist, conflict framework, right? And at least it has three things and not two. But that's not a good way to look at movies. It's very limiting because you're squishing it into a small frame. So, what are some of the threads within the theme uh, that keep coming up in the movie? What did you find, Gustavs?
I found a big one was a disdain and disrespect for authorities when they present him with something to do, like a clear function that he could fulfill, like a disrespect. And then another theme is just that everybody wants him, and he doesn't want to sort of go along with it, and fear, like rejecting commitment. They even talk about that in the movie, right? That he's like, so he's self-defensive and everything. And criminality, like the sort of class was a very overt big theme in the movie between the Southie and the Harvard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's three classes. Um, so there's a way in which also Sean, the therapist, rejects authority, right? Because he doesn't want to become the Fields Medal guy, and he knew that back then, right? He didn't want it, right? Because you got to remember that Professor Lambeau says you're smarter than I am. You could have been bigger than me, and he's like, I just don't care, right? Like, so it's not just Will who's rejecting authority, right? And I would say the nice thing about, we'll say, the fractal nature of the movie is that you see a rejection of authority on two different levels, and it's contrasted by that third level, the guy who's doing nothing but following the rules of science or something. I don't know, whatever you want to call that. That's a demon right there, right? Like, yeah, the Fields Medal, who cares? It's math. Get over it. So Christopher, What did you find for Threads?
Um, a big thread was I think Will choosing to like aim it downward at lower things, basically.
Yeah,
And
that's a good one.
yeah, there's also a seems I think noticed in there like this the character's putting a dichotomy between paying attention and having trust in things.
Say more. Give me an example. I'm
That's
really intrigued now.
it's Will is like, he's the genius. He's obviously smart, but then you see him, and he's smart. He pays attention to all these things that nobody else can even like contemplate seeing. But then he just goes and hangs out with his friends, and when he's just hanging out with them, he's not paying attention to things when he's doing that. He's just kind of sitting back and relaxing or something, instead of, because he trusts his friends and he doesn't trust the other people.
Yeah, and to some extent, he's using them as entertainment, distraction style entertainment.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is not. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I mean, he's also contributing and things like that. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't see that. That's great.
And I think you also see that a bit when he like starts to trust Sean, or Robin Williams' character,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he just starts enjoying his company and not paying attention to what he's doing.
Oh yeah. So start paying attention to yourself and trying to say manage your relationship in the world in real time or something. Which I like that. Well, that's a big problem now, especially with a lot of internet people, is they're always trying to manage. They're trying to get in front of everything, right? Like, well, how does this work? And can I, right? And it's like, no, you can't, and you shouldn't. Life is better if you don't, actually, right? And yeah, that's actually a big theme. Anything else that either you two wanna add for Threads within the theme before I go into my
I
list?
thought I thought this is like just a tiny detail maybe, but like homosexual stuff kept coming up like a lot. Like the stuff with grabbing the ass and everything. Like I guess it's just part of the humor around that, but it came up a lot. Like
Yeah.
5 times.
Okay. Okay. Let me address this right now. That was basically my childhood. No, it's cultural, Gustav's. It's very at the I don't want to call it lower class, but at the class below the middle class and into most of the middle class, any part of the middle class that was exposed to the people who had real jobs doing real things in the real world, like moving things, landscaping, building houses, plumbing, electrician, all the standard carpenter, all the dirty job stuff. Um, male, the pure idea of male virility and strength is all wrapped up in that. And so, yeah, that I mean, the look, I got a buddy. We still talk. He, he he's a business owner. He owns a very profitable business. Um, very often when I answer the phone, I will say something really obnoxious to him, and he'll just say it back, and he'll go, and he does we have movies in common, obviously, right? And I did not grow up with him, although, because I met him when I was in my, how old was I? Yeah, I was probably in my mid-20s or something. Um, but he'll very often say, what are you busy in a chat meeting? Right, because it's one of the jokes between us, because he's also, knows about online and spent quite a bit of time online, actually, although he wasn't doing the same thing I was doing. And then, oh yeah, the number of gay jokes between us is off the charts. Like you'd be uncomfortable for sure. And we wouldn't do that around you, by the way. But when we're talking to ourselves, forget it. We're just saying the most. First of all, we swear a lot to each other, just as a matter of regular sentences. And second of all, yeah, there's a lot of questioning of the masculine virility, and yeah, that's not unusual for that area. It's unusual in different classes. This is the vertical causality everyone's missing. Yeah, in the different classes, of course not. The upper middle class doesn't talk like that at all, right? If you're not exposed to people who break down buildings for a living, but and not every person that breaks down buildings, will use that homosexuality to sort of test. And you got to understand too, a lot of human interaction, whether we like it or not, whether we try to avoid it or not, is really all about testing boundaries and limits. And that is one way to test the limits of, what are you willing to do? You gonna punch me out? Are you gonna punch me just because I called you, a naughty, disgusting homosexual man?
Yeah, there was a lot of boundary testing in the movie. That was a theme for sure.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And Christopher, you got anything else before I go down my extensive list?
No, I don't have anything else right now.
That's fair. I just wanted to give you guys a chance. Yeah. So one of the themes is stuckness in a way that traps the person from seeing more of the world, right? And so you see, again, there's a fractal nature to this movie. You see the stuckness of the professor, right? And he's stuck in a couple of different ways. You see the stuckness of Tom, his assistant, right? You see Sean's stuckness, right, which gets immediately revealed by Will, which is amazing, right? Because there's a bunch of stuff going on in there. Maybe we'll get to it, and maybe actually we won't, but there's a bunch of stuff going on in that initial reaction and the next one, right? So the first two visits to the therapist, there's a lot going on there, and if you're not really careful, you'll definitely miss it. And then of course there's Will's stuckness, and that's tied up with what we'll call psychological trauma, because it's a fair enough way to think about it, even though psychology is the worst thing ever. So that that's sort of something to notice. Also, another theme is the best advice comes those closest to the world, right? It's coming from the people closest to the world. They're giving the best advice, right? The advice to go work at McNeil or whatever think tank or the NSA or whatever is just terrible advice, right? Because it's a mismatch between what Will is used to and what he can handle, right? And his skills, right? Because his skills, he knew whatever he wants, actually whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. This hierarchy at three levels, basically, right? So there's this academic hierarchy, this middle class hierarchy represented by the therapist, and then there's Will and his friends, which is, that's the lowest of the low. I mean, look at the things they talk about, and look at what happens. Like the scene at the house, probably my favorite scene, just because I'm not saying that exact thing has happened, but also that's happened. Like I have been in that room with those people for sure, and I love them. They're great. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And of course, it's very much a movie of its time, right? VHS and all this, craziness. But that hierarchy is shown over and over again, right? And all of it is contrasted with this English heiress, right, who has an inheritance, right? Which is the contrast that most people will miss, right? They just think it's the three levels, but those three levels are contrasted by her experience. So she's very important to the movie, because if that wasn't there, this wouldn't be as good a film. And I'm not saying it would have made any less money or anything, but it just wouldn't be as good a film. And so having that hierarchy at three levels, because she's not in the hierarchy, like she's English, like what, and she has an inheritance, right? She's not getting funded from grants from MIT. She's not, making her money, tearing down buildings. So right, none of that's happening. Right. And she's not just, sitting at the community college, Bunker Hill Community College, famous little community college down there, right tucked in by the highway. It's underneath the big overpass. pretty hysterical, actually. Um, you know, not just scraping a living by, living in the old neighborhood because you got no place. It's not that. It's not this middle class, lower class, or upper class thing. And so that contrast really adds to it. And then a big theme, which I'm going to tell you both because of all the people to miss it, I'm probably going to commit Harry Carey after this. Book learning versus experience in the world, guys. Come on. That came up over and over again. I thought it was great. That was one of my favorite recurring patterns, is the different way in which they explore that idea of book learning versus being in the world and tearing down a building, that dirty jobs experience. And then there's this the imperfections of the world are the valuable part that creates intimacy. That was a theme that came up a few times. And look, again, there's no right answers, and I don't blame anybody for missing stuff because I just see a lot of stuff. So lucky me. And it took several viewings of the movie to get here too. So if you only watched it once, I wouldn't expect you, to catch so many of these things, right? I just watched it recently, like a month and a half ago or something. So last night when I rewatched it was pretty fresh in my brain, except I lost the big fractal pattern formulation that I had in my head, but maybe it'll come back while we're yapping. Knowledge versus feeling. That's another thing that comes up. It actually does come up in all three frames. Because Tom points it out at one point to Will, when Professor Lambeau is not in the office yet, right? He basically says, "I hope you're grateful. Most teachers wouldn't give you this kind of time." And it's like, oh, right. And so he's like, it's not all about the math, right? Which is ironic coming from Tom, and then also not ironic, right? Because he clearly has this very close relationship. He's a little bit jealous of all the time that's being spent with Will. That comes out in a couple of scenes, right?
Academia is very much like that. Yeah. Where there's this politicking around the university, and then at the same time you just have people who outshine others, and the professor's status is incredibly valuable in itself. It's something that they've built their whole life towards and upon, just having this position. And yeah, sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect between their ability and that position, a little bit. And that's for universities which are very, and even the field in the movie, mathematics, it's very perfect, it's ideal, and that disconnect is annoying to those people very much.
Yeah, you see it too, with the girlfriend, right? And Will, with that idea of this knowledge versus this feeling. Like, I don't want to know what you know, I want to know how you feel, sort of a thing. That's there. And then of course with the therapist, it's there, right? And to some extent, it's the same with his best friend, right? And his friends, because they're not under any illusions about what he can do and what he can't do and who he is, and they're willing to support him no matter what. I mean, they get into fights with him for no reason. But also, yes, like, before you go thinking like this is a fantasy, no, this is one of the most realistic movies that has ever been made. I guarantee you, it's far more realistic than most documentary. And there are obviously some exaggerations and hyperbole in there, but also there's some real geniuses with photographic memories running around Boston, I'll tell you that, who aren't anywhere near and would never go near a university. That's a thing. Are any of them, we'll say, that bright and well-read? Probably not. Maybe, though. You never know. I don't know what's in the world. It's a big world. Even that area is a big area. So that knowledge versus feeling. And then another theme that's actually explored, and it might be really hard to find in the other frames, is this dead authors versus live people you can give back to. which interestingly is Sean's statement, right? So Sean's statement is pretty much that. I mean, I didn't write it down verbatim, but like that's pretty much what he says, is that, you know, these authors that you think are your friends, you can't give back to them. And there are so many ways that that could have been phrased, and they're all worse. Right? Because you know, you can't interact with them. What are they giving to you other than, you know, what's in the book that they give to everybody else? That would have been a valid way to talk about that. But it wouldn't have been as good as people you can give back to, right? Which is that intimacy and that reconnection. But that also comes out in interactions with the girlfriend, because she's like, look, I want to be a medical doctor. I want to, you know, help people, right? That's what I want to do. And that's why I'm spending you know, a ridiculous amount of money effectively on this project, right? I have the money, I can give back to people. So that theme is there. And then, of course, the whole theme with the professor, especially, you know, when he's arguing with his buddy, with Sean, the therapist, right, is, you know, he can contribute to the world, right? He doesn't care about what Will wants at all, right? But he wants Will to like give to the world. And so that theme is contrasted and explored in all three frames, I would argue. And then I would say sort of the linchpin of all of this, the thing that drives and motivates the characters is just raw passion, right? Sean's got a passion for what he's doing, right? Despite the fact that we'll say he's sort of stuck. Will doesn't know what his passion is beyond a you know, a visceral sexual passion, basically, that, you know, it gets unblocked at some point, we'll say. In the professor's passion is this pure state of fantastical mathematics and all the things that could be brought and, you know, into the world. And it's not really clear what any of those are, by the way. Famous for telling you all that science sucks and you should ignore it.
I actually I don't think that Will has very much of like a primal passion. I think he's all about ego, because when he was getting the girl's number, he cared a lot more about proving that he can get the number. And when he was talking to the guy in the bar,
Yeah.
when he was befriending his friend, it was like that was just an excessive long rant from him to prove that he can do it in front of this other guy. Like he achieved it, but I think it was just a bit crazy.
He wasn't trying to your point. He never looked at her, right? He did what he did, impressed her, and then left and went and drank with his friends. She had to come up to him and give him the number, because she was like, no, I like, call me. Like, you know, and you know, some people don't have that experience. I've had that experience a couple times. Not pretty recently, actually. A man, had she not been half my age, let me tell you, things might have gone a lot differently. Yeah, I mean, that happens to some people, as you know, and it can happen as a result of impressing people in that way, because I've done that before by accident, quite by accident. And you know, that happens. But you're right. I mean, the thing about the passion is he's just existing within his trauma, and he doesn't have a properly oriented passion. But it's not like passion doesn't exist within him, right? It's how it gets expressed. Well, it gets expressed by seeing somebody, you know, on the court and beating them up. That's an expression of a passion. Like, I want vengeance for past mistakes. That's a passion project. You know, I mean, who would do that? Who would like follow somebody around? And it's interesting too, because they make that guy who gets beat up out to be the bad guy, right? Because he's swearing and being very obnoxious and rude, and probably I would have faced him down myself. Like, you don't talk to women like that, pal. Like, no. That's a you don't like her, you don't like her, but you don't have to say that publicly and yell it to people. That's ridiculous, right? So they make him out to be the bad guy, so that basically Will's just righting the wrongs of the world, and but obviously he gets carried away there with his passion for fighting, and he hits the cop, and that's sort of what starts the process going, right? Because without that, see, it's interesting, right? Without that happening at that moment, and it's a very natural occurrence, right? It's not forced. It's not like the plot needs it to happen, sort of thing, as Critical Drinker likes to say, right? It's more about at that moment when that happens, that's what sets up the conditions for him not only to have to get involved with the professor, but also to have to get involved with the therapist, right? Because there's a motivating factor here. Like, do you really want to go to jail or not? Right? So it's that misdirected passion within him that is part of what is getting resolved. And look, this is deep, deep, deep analysis type stuff. So if you missed it, that's fine. Everybody did, right? Don't beat yourself up. But also that idea of passion is super important. So anything else before we moved on to I think we're at other themes explored. Yeah.
There was you had mentioned the connectedness theme, whatever. It was when you don't have that connectedness, what like you have is people's expectations and projections.
Yes.
Because they don't have that connection, so that's what they have there.
Right. No, that's a really good point. In a flat world, you end up reducing relationships to expectations and projections, and that's a really good find, Christopher. This is why I did this, so that I can steal your intelligence and put it on Twitter and pretend it's mine. Oh shoot, did I say that out loud? My inner monologue must be broken. Yeah, I mean, I think that's like a really important way to think about what was going on. Is this expectation versus projection of the world due to flat worldness? Yeah, and that is part of the theme. Is that, I mean, effectively, if you want to see a flat world become enchanted, this is a great movie for that, because you get to see basically 4 flat worlds. If you're able to differentiate, you can see 4 flat worlds and how they all get re-enchanted through relationship, because that definitely happens in the movie, and that's a very rich and deep and interesting, in my opinion, experience to watch that. So what are sort of some of the other themes that were or items that were explored in the movie, Gustav, that you found? What do you have on your list?
So I had lottery tickets and cigarettes. I thought they were a very big theme in the movie, because they come up repeatedly a lot. Like smoking is, like it happens just like the homosexuality stuff. But I thought they were kind of linked because smoking is also in some ways a little bit like a lottery. It's a little bit obnoxious, but you can kind of lose at it quite heavily. But the thing with the lottery tickets was that lottery tickets contrast the sort of mathematical worldview of the professor, because he says it's like 30 million to 1 that you'll win, right? And then he's like implying that you shouldn't go buy lottery tickets, but he is himself holding a lottery ticket, which is Will, and it doesn't operate the way that lottery tickets operate. Like, he actually has to work with it. He's holding it, but he hasn't received anything out of it. So it's yeah, he's really special and everything, but he's like he's going out into the world. The professor is going out into the world, and this piece of gold, right? He's churned through tons and tons of rock, and this one piece of gold has fallen on his head, and it does like it's he has to work it somehow. He actually has to bring the gold out of it, and it's not like a statistical thing, right? And that's also like re-enchantment, is that you get this crazy outlier crazy lottery ticket win piece of gold, and it's not statistical.
Yeah, I like that. Do you remember the third time the lottery ticket comes up
Uh,
at the
the
lower
third time
level?
was when was that when he said that he'd buy them drinks with it?
No. So think about the movie at three layers. You got the academia layer. So you just, by the way, I didn't see this. I was right on the edge of it too. I was like, there's some boy lottery ticket comes up a lot. I didn't have it on my list. So you just described what it's like for Sean and for the professor, right? So Sean's just hoping and buying constant lottery tickets. The professor has the lottery ticket, right? In multiple ways. Like he's a Fields Medal winner, which is like no small feat, let me tell you, right?
Yeah.
Which is made clear in the movie. How does Ben Affleck's character there see this lottery ticket situation? Do you remember what happened?
He just tells him to cash it in. Yeah, don't be an idiot.
Yeah, he tells Will, "You have a lottery ticket. Use it."
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Explicitly. So I didn't even see that. That was good. This is why we do this. I don't care about the rest of you. I'm getting something out of it. Yeah, no, that's a good one. And yeah, the cigarettes is more like that mixing of the layers, right? Like you can't smoke in here, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that whole thing. Yeah. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah, they're two good contrasting agents to sort of show the difference between the three major layers in the movie, class layers in the movie, and why they're different, and why it's important that they're different, and what role they play, right? So that's interesting. All right, any other themes, or I'm disappointed. I'm gonna cry later. All right, Christopher, what do you have for other themes explored? Because I, of course, have a whole little list here.
Other themes explored. I also wrote down things like trust, love, and loyalty.
Well, I like that. That's none of those are on my list. Damn it. No, that's good. That's good. You want to give us examples of each?
Well, there's, Will is like loyal to his friends and the area the place, that's part of how he's stuck, is he's like wants to be loyal to them. And if he like goes off, he feels like he's betraying them somehow a bit, I think.
Yeah,
And
right.
yeah,
Yeah, he's using that loyalty to justify his stuckness in the
right. And then there's, how much he's going to actually like trust the girl that maybe he loves, maybe, there. And then,
Interesting.
obviously, trust, how much he's going to trust, any of the people that are trying to push him in some direction. So that happens multiple times. So
Yeah, the love theme's obvious. It's pretty much everywhere. Love of pure academia abstraction, right? Versus love of a woman, versus the loyalty to your past love of a woman, right? All of that's in there. Why isn't that in my list? This is why I don't like you, Christopher. This pisses me off about you, sir. Why didn't I find that unfair? What else? You have anything else, or is it just those three?
that's what I had in that section there.
Okay, no, that's fair. I'm yeah. Maybe we'll do another one of these. We'll get more used to this. So, and look, if you guys think like one of my list is wrong, that's fine too. It's all about discussion. So I have friendship as such, right? The nature of friendship, right? Because the underlying theme is around this interaction at the friend level between the former roommates and Will and his crew, basically, and within the crew too, right? Because the three of them get together and get him a car or build him a car for his birthday, which is awesome, right? They've been working on this whole time, and then he's 21 and he gets a car, right? And and also, there's all kinds of things in there, like car represents freedom, Peterson stuff. Like, yes, now you can unstuck yourself because you have a car, right? Whether it's going to the fancy job downtown Boston or it's driving across the country to California, which no one should ever do, especially not from Boston. The only thing worse is New York City. Ugh, barf. Therapy. I thought the theme of therapy is explored and it's contrasted nicely because you can see sort of the pop therapy guys, and Will just rips all of them apart. He just destroys them all, right? And makes a mockery of the profession. And then you get to this sort of, haggled looking, rundown guy at it's a community college. I mean, it's Boston, right? Come on, it's Boston. It's MIT, Harvard, Northeastern, Boston University, Boston College, UMass, UMass Boston, like all these big schools, right? On and on. Suffolk University, Emerson's a big AV school, right? Berkeley School of Music, right? I've been on the campus of all these places. They're all right next to each other. You can hardly walk from around Boston without hitting 3 campuses. It's insane. So there's and Bunker Hill's a great school actually for a community college. It's fantastic because there are these people that are there. One of the famous authors, Lehane, he did a course at Bunker Hill. I'm very pissed off at myself. I think actually, yeah, I think Taleb gave a course too, although I don't think he gave it at Bunker Hill. He gave it at UMass Amherst. I could have gone to that had I known about it, but I didn't know about it. So he's the therapist that's able to do the work. And he himself is very critical of the therapeutic structure. And so that's explored a couple of times right throughout the film, which I thought was great because I hate psychology in general. And there is some good psychology. Well, I mean, the movie's full of good psychology, which is ironic, right? Which I would just call human behavior because it's a lot easier and more accessible to people. But he's very skeptical. I mean, he knows how to run the system. Sean knows how to run the system, right? He knows how to write the reports correctly and all that. But he's like, yeah, I mean, this is whatever this is. Like, that's not what this is about. It's about relationship in the world. And that, that comes out. The idea of boundaries, obviously, right? Because Will can operate across all these boundaries. And for that matter, so can his girlfriend, right? I mean, she can make really dirty jokes with the guys over beer, which, I don't know. Is that super realistic? We're right on the edge of, how realistic. I'm sure some of that exists, but I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. I've seen things like that, but not that. The class obviously is a big theme. I can understand why people would miss it because we don't talk about class. We're in equality doctrine. People don't acknowledge that class exists anymore. They're very confused about it. They're very sort of butthurt that it might exist because equality doctrine or something. But that's throughout the film. It's dealing with these conflicts of class, especially with this character who can do all of them, right? I mean, he's at home in Southie, just fine, right? He's at home in the universities doing the math, right? And he's fine in the in the workplace. Like, he's fine at the bar. Like, he can do all these things. Whereas you get the impression that Sean would be okay, like hanging out with the guys, demolitioning the buildings, but not really his comfort area. He clearly doesn't want to hang out with his former roommate and the other sanctimonious math bastards that he was very clear about not liking. Like, this is why I don't go to the reunions, because you guys are all sanctimonious pricks. I love that. So true. 100% accurate. Nothing could be more accurate in a movie ever. Like, I've been there, then talk to MIT people. Yeah. And like I can roll in all those circles too. So very much identify. So can my buddy. He can just roll. He's fine at MIT. Right. He can't he's good enough that he can hide the fact that he can't talk the talk. Because he just grew up way more on the streets, we'll say, or identifies with way more on the streets. Whereas I can carry it up a notch, and we can speak slowly and with erudition if required in the proper scenario, right? And maybe my buddy could, but he never does, or something. That's always possible because he's always surprising me with what he can and can't do. But that idea of class is very much explored here, and I think to good effect. It's always hard to tell. I mean, at some level, I'd rather class be much clearer, brighter lines, and a few more stratums in there. But 3 is acceptable, I suppose, is the minimum acceptable number.
I really like the scene where they go looking for Will in the maintenance hall.
Yes.
That was a really good scene. I
Yeah.
really like that. Yeah, like when they go in and there's this sort of just like, yeah, they're in these other people's, like in the maintenance people's territory now. Like this is their kingdom. This is their office. They are
They're
now
in the
at the
basement.
professor's table. Yeah.
Well, and I like too that Tom's like, this is Professor Lambeau. And interestingly, Gerald Lambeau knows, no, this is not the time to pull that card. And he tells him, and I'm just like, wow, this is so good. It's so good. Yeah, you can just tell they're like, what the F do you want? What are you doing down here? You don't belong. You can tell. You can tell. So that's the other thing about the movie. You know, you say whatever you want about whatever sort of nitpicky things you want. This is a fantastically well acted film. Like the acting in this movie is off the charts good. You know, and yeah, look, I'd argue maybe cynically and maybe incorrectly that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck didn't have to act much because they were exposed to people like that because they grew up where they grew up, but they did grow up in this very mobile middle class area, so they were able to, like me and everybody else probably in Boston who has the ability, because not everybody has the ability, very familiar with moving between these spheres, these classes, right? So yeah, that was a really good scene. You're right. I like that scene too. Anything stick out for you on that, Christopher? Or?
Nothing off the top of my head right now, but
Yeah, all right. And again, I argue that without the girlfriend being British and inherited money, it would be a lot harder for U.S. audiences to, we'll say, unconsciously or subconsciously recognize the class system, because she's outside of it entirely, and also the thing that the Americans, the U.S. ethos is trying to embody is the aristocratic English system, because that's where we actually came from. It's not that hard, right? All the early settlers are sons of landed gentry, basically, in some form or another, at least initially. So that exploration class is important. And then there's this idea on, theme-wise, of bad relationship, explicitly, not relationship as such, but what does a bad relationship look like? And I think, again, the basement scene sort of points that out to some extent too. It's kind of everywhere. Your relationship with the people you're talking to and interacting with is, hard to see when it's bad. Right. And that is the driving force of the end of the movie is, I don't want you here tearing down buildings, it's a strange thing, right? Because Sean's kind of like, oh, settle down, have kids, build a life, right? And yet at the same time, you've got his best friend saying, if you're here with your wife and your kids and they, we go to baseball practice together and whatever, hang out for 50 years, I'm gonna kill you. He's like, what? Right? Because even though his friends are loyal to him, which is also right, it's not just he's loyal to his friends are loyal to him. That is a bad relationship, because at some point, and I thought it was more explicit in the movie, actually. Like, I thought it was, like, way more explicit, but hopefully people picked up on it. Will is the exemplar for his friends. Like, he's, like, the thing they look up to because of his gifts, and so they don't want him trapped with them, right? They're also, in a sense, we'll cover this later, comfortable with where they're at. Like, they know where they fit in the world. They don't have any domicile or meaning crisis because they know exactly where they fit in the world. And I gotta highlight this. Zealot's dead. Good to see you, sir. As a Bostonian, I love this movie. I know it just biases us horribly, though, right? I visit the Commons bench often. Yeah, well, there's a bunch of places like the Esplanade and stuff that, I miss. I sometimes miss being around Boston. And then they think they're all gonna die from a 2-foot snowstorm because it's like the blizzard of '78, which was 2 snowstorms and 4.5 feet of snow. Because apparently everybody post fake news virus scamdemic is now insane in Boston, except for you, David. You're fine. But there's a lot of people that used to be quite sane who are no longer sane in Boston. And then
That was a really beautiful moment at the end where his friend goes and sits in his place in the car, in Will's place in the car. That's now empty, right? That was a really beautiful moment. That's like the sort of handing off of the baton and everything. Like, they're gonna get their stuff together, maybe.
That just pisses me off because that should have been in my themes list and it's not. So thank you for finding that. Yeah, the hierarchy and the proper place in the hierarchy. That's part of it. Personal growth obviously is a theme that's explored. Another theme that's explored that I think people will miss because it's just so much part of everybody's experience is decisions. How do you make decisions? What are good decisions and bad decisions? Right? And also, I don't know what sort of possessed Matt Damon to write it this way, but it's really quite brilliant, like quite brilliant. There's this in the initial interaction with Sean the therapist, there's this whole thing about you're insulting my decisions. Well, I'm insulting your decisions, right? Like you're like this guy in the boat that you painted, and right. So that theme is everywhere. Like you can stay stuck forever, right? And these contrasting decisions, I think, really make the film super deep because it gets you sort of unconsciously thinking about all these decisions and how they work. And there's a deep theme of the trade-off of personal gain versus improvement at a higher level. For Gerald Lambeau, the professor, it's the world level, right? For Will, it's the level of, look at the things I'm doing to help people. I'm, tearing down buildings and, whatever. There's a long conversation about that, right? About the honor, right? And then it just turns out that, again, like I don't know what possessed him to write this so well, but did you do it for honor though? Because there's honor in it, but was that your final cause? Was that your telos? Because I got questions, right? And that part in particular is quite brilliant. That's quite brilliant the way he did that, because that's one of those things that highlights. Again, I got to do a video on this at some point. I got to figure out a way to do it. The non-optionality of the world, like doing things has a lot of effects. So having any job is going to automatically come with a bunch of effects, especially if you do it well, right? But then assigning that causally and saying, oh, the reason why you're doing these jobs is honor, but it's not. But honor happens, right? Because they're honorable jobs. And that confusion is very hard for people to work out. And that's how you end up with conspiracy theories. Like, well, it's the single explanation that explains the whole thing. And it's like, no, that's not. There's no single explanation that explains the whole anything in life. So that trade-off is important. And then there's 3 trade-offs, right? There's stay with my boys and be loyal and whatever, right? For whatever excuses you have for being stuck. There's the no, go out in the world and have yourself a good life with someone, right? And make their world better. And then there's the no, change the world of mathematics. The whole world will be changed, which again, I think is an overstated lie that the science idiots tell us all the time. They have no evidence for this, by the way, and I've proven that to many of them, and they cry about it all the time. Which, good, screw them. So that trade-off goes all the way from the personal to the world, and should settle roughly in the middle, at least in the framework of this particular film. So that theme is, all throughout. And this other idea that I didn't catch the last 62 times I watched the movie, confidence versus cockiness, right? There's a difference between those two things. And it's not, we'll say, knowledge. It's more like sophistication or something. Right. Because confidence is about right orientation in the world. And cockiness is about covering up your fears. None of it's about competence, which is even more interesting, I would say. And then finally, the fear of change. So that's my list of the other themes explored. What do you think?
One thing I wanted to comment on the previous thing you said about how he receives this guidance to settle down and sort of have a family and do stuff, and then his friend telling him, Ben Affleck telling him to, just like don't stay here, actually go somewhere else. Well, actually, like, going to get the girl is how he does that. Like, he has to make that sacrifice. He can't get the girl in, like, where he is. It doesn't seem, or at least, like, he has her, but she's just far away, and he's got to make that move to get her. And it's a pretty rough couple in some ways. Like, they're pretty different, but it seems like they can work, and that's like the valuable thing. Like, if you get that, that's his lottery ticket, really, because he probably couldn't work with a lot of ladies, I assume.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's his gamble. Back to your lottery ticket point, which I still don't like you for. So annoying when people catch stuff that I don't. It really bothers me. All right. Any other comments on my list before we move on? Okay. The repeated pattern, the fractal pattern of the film. What you got, Gustavs? Lay it on us. Come on. Bring the brilliance.
A pre-existent sort of a pre-existent opportunity reveals itself. So they were already the parts for the thing to come together, but then the image of the whole thing together becomes revealed. So there's this opportunity to make something happen, and you have everything you need, really. You just have to push the button, basically. And but a lack of direction makes it fail and crash, because somebody doesn't know what they want to do. Usually will. So it's either the relationship, him being offered this opportunity to go to California with her, or working with the professor, which he initially, like, completely refuses, or opening up to Sean at some point. That was like a big thing. Like, are you going to seek a connection? Like, he in that moment he actually doesn't. Or taking the job. He has this good opportunity to get a pretty good job. Maybe it wasn't for him, really, but he could have done it, and he doesn't know whether he wants to. So there's all these opportunities revealing themselves, given to him or given to someone else, and they just don't actualize.
Okay.
But in the end, they do. It does. So.
Right. And then I would add the practicality of that is that the idea of lost opportunity or whatever is explored between the roommates, right? And then it's also explored with Tom and the professor, right? And then it's also explored at the lower level with the friends, right? Because the pipsqueak kid develops enough to be offered the job. And then ultimately, as you pointed out, right, he gets to go in that front seat, right? He gets to ride up front. And the other kid does not, interestingly, which is even more fascinating to me. It's like he just never changes there, right? What you got, Christopher, for fractal repeated pattern of the film?
This was where I put the propositions versus participation motif, kind of, that you had mentioned earlier.
That works.
Because
Yeah.
that did seem, at all the levels, it's kind of seemed to be happening there, where people are, saying one thing, doing another, and
Right.
trying to, yeah.
Yeah, you want to talk about what levels you saw it on, or some examples, or?
Yeah, it was the part where the therapist Sean is talking to Will about, you're just a kid. You've read all these books, but you've never gone to these places, and that was
Right.
that happened there. And then Will's got his he's there's kind of his idea of what he says he wants to do. He talks about honor and whatnot, and goes on, even in the job interview, he goes on this big thing like, I'm too honorable to work for the NSA here,
Right.
with a big speech there. Then it's pointed out that no, the way you're participating here, you don't actually have that honor as much as you claim to. And
yeah, do you see that theme with the professor?
A bit, I think. Let's see, I'm thinking about Will with the professor here.
Not even necessarily Will with anybody.
Well,
right?
no, yeah, I mean, that does the that's kind of the argument that the professor and Sean have,
Yeah,
with each other, is
right. Yeah.
that.
And then do you see that with his friends?
Yeah, there's that when Ben Affleck tells him, don't stay here because you actually shouldn't stay here forever. And
well, interestingly, and obviously I have the advantage. All their interactions with the world in that world are the same, right? Like they're like, oh, these Harvard kids, what's a Harvard bar anyway? I thought there'd be equations on the wall, right? That's the same. That's actually that same pattern at the lower level. They're constantly being like crude and crass, right? But they're the best people, right? The lower class people that are swearing and saying nasty, obnoxious stuff are the best people. Like, actually, even though they say that they don't act that way, right? That doesn't happen. And the things they enact to the best of their ability are just lesser in some sense. Although I would argue, if someone built me a car, if a group of my friends had built me a car, man, that was, talk about ride or die. Yeah, that would have been awesome. So it's there at all three levels, right? Because really the professor's struggling with, well, what did I ever do in the world? This Fields medal, who cares? I'll give it to you. Like it's not a big deal, right? But for what? He wants something more abstract, which is just the joy of working with somebody on more higher level math. I mean, okay, I got like, maybe, I'm saying that's a bad thing, but also, what are we talking about here, right? And you can see that struggle because, like, you already have that. You won the damn Fields medal, right? So he's in some sense rejecting the materialism, but not for something better. He's just rejecting the materialism for more a higher fantasy level of the game or something, right? He's never getting out of it. So I like that. So I have not remembered my original formulation for the fractal pattern of the film. So I'm just going to do what I had written down, which was basically at all levels, this is how relationship allows for personal growth by giving you a place in the world, which is that third way. In other words, enchantment. It's one way to look at it, right? The movie is about enchantment. It's about enchantment at 3 layers of the class system, as contrasted by the aristocratic system that we don't have in the US. And I think that's probably why anybody can relate to it too, because the Brits will relate to it immediately as well, for sure, right? And probably any European, because the England is still a standard, right? Maybe not, maybe it was never the standard, it was always France or something, but England is still a standard for that sort of interaction. And so that pattern is fractal because you see it, you know, much like with the other two excellent examples, you see it unfolding at different layers of the movie over different time spans in the movie in different ways. And that's what makes a deep movie. And not all movies are fractal, right? And then not all non-fractal movies are bad. But that's what makes a deep film, a really, quote, resonant film. That resonance happens as a result of depth in the movie, right? Not mere not mere identification, like, oh, I identify with this character or these characters or this situation. That's important too, but without the practicality, you don't get that resonance. It's the practicality, I would argue, that gives you the that resonance with the film. Any comments before we move on? Anybody want to explore anything? Okay. So, Gustavs, which characters did you list as having developed, right? Which characters developed? They have development to them.
I wrote down basically all of them. So
Uh,
I think pretty much everybody, except maybe so which characters have development? I
Yeah.
would say Will, Ben Affleck, probably, although maybe he doesn't need it so much.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah. And yeah, Sean, but maybe Gary, the professor least. Or like
Gerald.
Jerry.
Yeah.
What was his name? Gerald.
Jerry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jerry. So I think probably him least of all. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Christopher, what you got? Who you got on your list?
I was thinking the Will and Robin Williams character.
Okay. No
that
Gerald.
one?
No professor?
I didn't write him down, but yeah, I can see how he's at a little bit.
All right. Well, this is more about what you wrote down and what you saw
Yeah.
and didn't see. So that's fine. Yeah, I mean, obviously, excuse me, as I choke and die. Will and the professor and the therapist, Sean, right? They all had this growth, and I would argue the girlfriend doesn't change at all, really, which is fine. I mean, again, contrast to see, so it's a kind of important. I don't think any of his boys really changed. I mean, you make an argument for that one little pipsqueak friend who gets in the front seat at the end, to your point, Gustav. But is that really a change? I mean, they're, you know, they're kind of not changing outside of their character, right? Their characters remain intact at the end, is what I would argue. So, do you have anybody on your remain stuck list there, Gustavs, or did you think I was psyoping you? Which would be fair.
Just the professor. Yeah. I think the professor kind of doesn't really get it at the end, but his mate Sean does, so that might be good enough for him.
That's interesting. So, what is it that you're identifying as him not developing? Like, what didn't you see that said, "Ah, I didn't see this, therefore he didn't develop as a character"?
I think he just kept pushing for like the mathematics being the goal and purpose of his life and everything, and like, yeah,
Okay.
that he
Okay.
needs to put everything into.
All right. Christopher, which you got?
Yeah, I was saying that Will's friends don't really develop, so they're kind of like stuck where they were. The yeah, Professor Fields Metal guy didn't seem like he changed in the movie. Like, it seems to me like there's a potential for it to change, like to develop off screen or something after this, but it seems like he hadn't got there anywhere yet.
Interesting. Okay. That's fair. Okay. All right. My list is Tom, the professor's assistant. Obviously the girlfriend and the gang. Chucky Sullivan and the gang. They didn't really change. But like they had a place. Like the girlfriend had a place. She knew where she was in the world, right? The gang knew where they were. They knew what they were doing. Tom knew what he was. Like he didn't have any aspirations. And so he didn't really develop. I'd argue the professor developed quite a bit. And Sean kind of let him off the hook on the apologies because he knew that was difficult for him. But he apologized and tried to make up with Sean at the end. Right. And so to me, that's the development. It wasn't much, right? You'd always argue, it wasn't very much. And, Christopher, I like your exposition. It was maybe off screen. But I thought that was actually a huge development. And I think, again, this is a contrast problem. Like, had you been to MIT and Harvard and talked to those people, you would think that that was a miracle. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm sorry, but my goodness. So I'll tell the story. I've told it before elsewhere on the channel, but I'll just tell the story. So one day, my girlfriend at the time was she's catting around at MIT because she went to Northeastern. She's catting around at MIT, so she invited me over there, and I was like, whatever. Been to MIT a billion times, whatever. So we're hanging out in this MIT dorm with these freaking nerds. It's just terrible people. And they're all young too, right? I was a little older, they were a little younger, and two of them come walking in and they're excitedly arguing. And he goes, ah ha ha, what I forget the names involved and stuff, but he just dropped his drink on the floor. And he's like, I did not spill my drink on the floor. That cup was top heavy. He's like, yeah, but you were holding the tray. And he's like, yeah, but the cup was top heavy. It was engineered wrong. And I'm just sitting there like, this isn't real, is it? Like, this isn't how. But I like, again, I'm like used to this because this happens all the time at a place like MIT, actually, right? Or it used to back in the 90s, certainly. And I was just like, what is wrong with this kid? Like, obviously the drink falling is your fault. Like, why can't you go there instead of making an engineering excuse for you just doing something that happens to people every day? Like, people drop stuff, people spill drinks. Even I've spilled a drink one time, right? Like, it happens. Like, why are we like this? But they are like that for real. And this is part of my argument about academia. You can see my video on academia, right? We need to put those people someplace safe. Not just for their own good, but also for the good of others. Because they need a place to be if that's what you're going to be like. Like, well, you need to be there. And then, we need to find a way to harness them to do good, which is make sure they never go on YouTube, for example. That would be a good one. Because you don't want them spewing their all these. I'm just going to tell you, all these people, almost all of them, pretty much, have one really bad, wacky, ancient alien style or worse idea. All of them, and they're very passionate about that one idea. All of them, they're all like that, because I think everyone's like that to some extent. Like, everyone's got their one thing, right, that they're just completely unreasonable about, and they don't care. But they're super passionate about it because it's unreasonable or something, and it's part of human behavior, which is why you need, maybe academia needs to be kind of walled off, right? And so, what do you think holds people back in the movie, Gustav? What do you have for that section of holding people back?
Well, I had the professor Jerry, so I put down that he's very comfortable and deeply invested in his whole mathematics career.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But like, at this point, now that you've laid it out to me, I'm like, yeah, no, he does move, and yeah, having been to those kinds of places, yeah, it's pretty extra. It's really actually astounding that he apologized and everything. That's very unusual. That's very, very unusual.
Okay, good. Well, it's the same in Europe. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I suspected it was, but also haven't hung out at any European universities. So fair enough.
Probably worse. It's probably 10 times worse.
That would be my suspicion. Yeah, we'll have to swap. I'll go over there. You come over here. We'll go to Boston. You can take me over to Cambridge University. Yeah. Christopher, what you got? What you got for what's holding people back?
I wrote resentment is holding people back.
Okay.
Seems
You wanna give
like,
us some
and
examples?
well, I was thinking mostly of the professor guy, arguing with his friend Sean about what could or should have been,
Mm.
and yeah. And then there was also things like just a general gnosis valuing, like a lot of the college stuff is about they're doing, trying to come up with superior propositions about things. So that's that. And then especially with, on the other side, complacency with why his other people stay in the movie, stay stuck. They're just coasting along. They don't have any, they're just complacent about how things are and either rightly or wrongly satisfied with what is.
Okay. Yeah. So my thing is, PSYOP confirmed, right? What holds them back? A healthy knowledge of where they belong. Right? Will doesn't know where he belongs, and so he's just stuck with what's around him. Chucky Sullivan and the gang know where they belong, and they know that that's where they should be. Like, they're already in the right place, so technically they're not stuck. They're in the thing at the point where they should be. Right? So they're not technically stuck. PSYOP confirmed. Can't expect me not to do something like that. That would be silly. And the therapist, Sean, doesn't really know like what he should be doing next until it's contrasted for him by this annoying punk who has no right to be able to do such a thing even. Right? But it's sort of the nice thing for me about that particular interaction, because it's such a flip, is it shows not only the usefulness of psychology at some level, or I would call it human behavior, but also how the book learning is valuable, just not in the way you think, and how it doesn't work when he says it. It doesn't work on Sean at all, right? It's the fact that Sean develops a new close relationship with a new person that brings him to the conclusion that he doesn't have to stay stuck with the memory of his dead wife and never having another, or risking another experience like that. Right? And that to me was one of the most interesting sort of, we'll call it, hidden aspects of the movie, is that interaction shows both the utility of propositional engagement and how it doesn't actually function the way you think. And it's actually the actions and movements and the change in relationship that causes the propositions to manifest, right? So stating the propositions doesn't cause them to manifest. Having the relationship causes it to manifest. And then the healthy knowledge, because knowledge is not propositional at all ever. Knowledge is always action in my model. So because of that participation, that's what gets people out of things, right? So until they have that participation, that relationship, they all stay the way they are, right? And the only time that that's not true is the treaty at the end that Chucky makes to Will, where he says, basically, he threatens an action in the future. If in 50 years we're still here, I'm going to kill you. Like there's this very deep sense. We build this stuff. We take down these buildings for people like you to use them. And I can't use them the way you can. All I can do is tear them down and put them together and stuff. That's it. Right. And so it's like, oh, how interesting. Right. So that's that's the only instance where the propositions actually work. But they're tied to a future action based on a deep relationship and this loyalty. Because as Sean points out, those kids that he hangs out with, any one of them would take a shovel to your head if he asked them to. It's like, oh, so like the threat of, we'll call it ultimate violence, is there. And it's real enough that when it's backed up by words, because that's how it works, everything is backed up by words. Words don't come first, right? Then it has real power. But the words don't have any power without the loyalty. And that's part of the healthy knowledge, because healthy knowledge, we'll say, isn't mere action, although that can generate plenty of healthy knowledge or mere participation. Healthy knowledge is also backed up by propositions. That's why, it's not a contradiction for me to be on YouTube giving you propositions. That's not a contradiction. It's not how that works. I'm not saying they don't have any value or any utility. I'm saying that the utility is not around the propositions. It's around these other things, these other signals that demonstrate action, participation in the world. So you guys want to comment on that or ask questions or back it up or refute it or anything? No? Too ponderous and difficult?
I don't have anything on it right now. I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, that's fair. I mean, that's nuclear weapon style.
I think you said it all.
Well, thank you. I would like to believe that. I'm skeptical that I can cover it that well, but maybe I did. That would be wonderful. So what did you guys think of this document and the format that we used for this engagement?
I thought that there were the thing that confused me was that there were multiple tiers of themes. So there's themes, threads, other threads. So there's actually 3 tiers.
Mhm.
And coming up with stuff and sorting between them was pretty tricky and a bit confusing. I'm not saying it wasn't good, but it was
Okay.
a little bit
No.
difficult.
That's good to know. Okay. Anything else?
I got confused with the antagonist part in this movie. That
Yep.
was, yeah.
As designed. Guilty is charged of psyoping. I'll
Well then.
gladly take the rap. Christopher, what's your feedback?
Yeah, I like this so far, at least. I mean, yeah, coming up, I think like Gustav's coming up with different like themes and threads and patterns, whatever, and calling them different things might be. It's an maybe a little bit challenging and interesting exercise there. Yeah, but I think it's good. Yeah, I was gonna say, like before you revealed that the protagonist antagonist thing was just a psyop, I had put down that the antagonist was Will. So
That's interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, he is the piece of sand that turns into the pearl, right?
Yeah.
So that's fair. I mean, see, that's the problem when you see, that's how you know it's a bad framework for this movie. Is because there are multiple answers to a simple question like that. And so part of spotting bad frameworks is, oh, is this projection, does it contain logical inconsistencies as the result of the framework? Well, yeah, that framework sucks, right? It's just a bad framework. Not for all movies, right? But for this movie, certainly. But I would argue if you're trying to shove something into protagonist, antagonist, conflict or driving force or whatever nonsense term they're using this week, um, you're really missing the richness of the movie because you're trying to reduce it down into a very small box with, that's got separators in it. And a good movie will never fit in that box, would be my argument. It will never fit in that box. And I think that, again, I've mentioned this a million times. The Matrix trilogy suffer from this, right? So what they did was, what made the Matrix good? The fight scenes and the cool camera effect that they invented. So let's do more of that. And lo and behold, you get the sequels. It's like, yes. Right. And that's not the only thing in the sequels or anything, but you can see where it came from. And yeah, if you cut down the fight scenes and the ridiculous use of bullet time, you would definitely improve the sequels immediately. As much as I love the fight scenes, there's too much. There's just way too much. They're way too drawn out. They're way too silly. There's way too much showing off of bullet time, right? And that's because they put it in a small framework. What makes this movie successful? Oh, it's these visual things. I was like, well, that's not what made the first Matrix movie so good. Right? It's certainly a component that helps. And this goes back to you can't have a good movie without, we'll say, 4 elements, right? And out of 12, we'll say, just off the top of my head, I'm not trying to be precise here, right? So if you don't have at least 4 of the 12 elements, the movie's not going to be good. And it doesn't necessarily matter which 12, although maybe some go better than others together or something. And I think because people don't think that way about things, they get confused about why things are good and bad. And yeah, it's perfectly reasonable. So just to round things out, because I don't want to keep everybody too long, and it's almost lunchtime. So I don't want to keep myself too long either. I'm perfectly upfront, guys. I gotta eat at some point. So Gustav, was this exercise good for you? And what do you think you learned as a result of the engagement in the movie club, so I can determine if we're going to do this again?
It was really good. I enjoyed it. I hope I can do it again. And I definitely got a lot of structure from it, and being forced into these sort of categories of pattern was pretty good, I would say. Like it helped me think about what is the main theme and so on. And I suspect that I will remember things about the movie a lot better than I have about other movies that I've watched. For sure. For sure. Both details and general patterns. And yeah, thank you very much. It was great.
Christopher,
But
same
I think that
Okay.
sorry, but I think that the movie was in some ways a little bit kind of too personally yeah, just too much personal resonance for me. I think I just wasn't really thinking very straight actually about it. Yeah.
That's fair.
Sorry, Christopher.
That's fine. Christopher, go ahead.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know. I enjoyed this, whatever. I'd like to do more. Yeah. It was helpful here coming together, seeing whatever Gustav's and whatever's pointed out what I had missed in the layers of patterns and stuff. That's always good. Always interesting to me to see what all that. Yeah. I don't know. Was there any other part to that question that I need to?
So is there anything specifically it helped you with other than just, extra perspective and contrast, which is enough? I'm not, it's like a book club, right? Only I'm trying to see if it goes any deeper, we'll say.
I don't know. I can't think of anything too deep much that right now, but
Okay. Well, did it
But,
enhance your experience of watching the movie at all to like have the
well,
document there?
yes,
And
yes,
Okay.
that did help.
okay,
That'll help me more intentionally pay attention to this stuff while watching the movie instead of just consuming it more as entertainment or whatnot. So
okay, good. Well, yeah, part of
always
the
good.
goal is to see if you can drag people out of not noticing the bad parts of films and stuff, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of those. There's a lot of that. There's that old, well, not old. There's that new trope about, 1984 and Fahrenheit 451 are not instruction manuals. They were warnings, right? And the movies are the same. There's a lot of movies people are like, I really like that movie because it said this. And I'm like, actually, it warned against that. But why don't you know? Why didn't you catch it? So part of this is to help people to see that without ruining the movie. So I don't want to ruin it. Like I want people to understand and interact with the richness of the movies because they're important, right? And separate the good from the bad, we'll say, right? Or at least being able to recognize the bad so that you're more focused on, we'll say, the good parts of the film in general. Okay. And then, Gustav, do you have any, sort of quick high level suggestions? Obviously on the Discord, we can go into more detail later.
No,
Okay.
no suggestions.
Christopher, any enhancement suggestions?
Mhm. No, I can't think of any right now.
Okay, great. Well, look, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and share your thoughts with everybody, because that's pretty brave, actually, to like go out there, especially when you have high contrast. Because for whatever reason, I just see a lot of stuff at once compared to most people. So, yeah, I have lists, and you guys had, one or two items or some stuff I thought you might have more lists for, which is fine. And most of your stuff was not on my damn list. So mission accomplished. That's fantastic. I couldn't really be more happy with this. And this is good too that there were only three of us, because it's always hard for me to tell, like with the book clubs. Like I never thought the language creation book club was going to go 40 episodes and be like these 2 hour plus extravaganzas. I'm glad that it was. I'm not sad, but also what was not expecting, right? And so I didn't know how long this was going to take. And now we have sort of a measure for pacing, and you guys help with that. So I really appreciate it. And if you guys are interested in the audience, Mark Wisdom Discord server, or you can reach out to me on the channel. And suggestions for movies are welcome. We'll try to do another one of these at least and see how it goes. I would like to get more people engaged, even if it's only in the live chat, but people who have at least gone through the template document, made a copy, filled it out for the movie we're watching. I might make some adjustments. I have to think more about this. It's going to take me a while to process this. And if you want to do more discussions about this, the Mark Wisdom Discord server is available. People can just jump in, right? I'm there way too often. So yeah. Any closing thoughts, Gustav? Do you want to say anything to the audience or to either of us?
You should watch the movie and join in our next discussion. Thank you.
Christopher.
I will just second what Gustav said. That's
good. Okay. Listen, thanks for engaging, everybody. This is still part of the same thing that we always like to talk about, which is that the world needs you to be better. And this is part of you being better to make the world better. And I want to thank everybody for watching. And we'll see if we can do this again, when that's going to be and what movie it's going to be. And, hopefully people will make a copy of the Google Doc and fill it in for themselves and participate in whatever way they can. Have a lovely rest of your weekend. And if you're in the US, particularly in like half of it where there's going to be a horrible storm, be safe and take care of yourself. And we'll see you later.